You can say a lot of things, but all I know will tell you what I mean.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me, Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, and I'll tell you about LinkedIn in just a bit. Thank you for making this your first, second, third, fourth listen, whatever it is. We appreciate you every single day. You know, and I said at the beginning, this weekend was well received because I'm sort of focusing on this receiver that got crystal balled, recruiting prediction machined to Alabama in Caleb Cunningham. There were some other big names there. There's some other big stuff to talk about. But I think we'll start with Caleb Cunningham, Jimmy. Now, you and I have said, we have repeatedly, that this kid appears to be very impressionable. It seems like everywhere he's gone after that weekend's visit, that particular team was the leader or co-leader or way up there, right? Now, you say, well, isn't that the way it is with all? No, not really. This guy's on a euphoric high after every single visit. But the Josh Newbergs, the Wilkes, those dudes are saying that Alabama appears to be the legit, not messing around leader, and therefore people have put in their crystal balls, recruiting prediction machines for Caleb Cunningham to end up at Alabama. Jimmy, where do you come in on this?
Well, BOL, we have not made a prediction yet. When we're waiting on the boss to come down on that. Obviously, we feel good about it because when people like with the credibility and swag that Steve Wiltfong and Josh Newberg and that group has, you don't ignore that at all. We're not ignoring it in the least, just not quite ready to make a prediction. But if I was asked right now, where do you think Caleb Cunningham will end up? I would guess Alabama. And I'm not shocked, but it's more of like a pleasant affirmation that I think at no point did we feel like Alabama was not in it for Caleb Cunningham. Like Luke said, he sort of gets on these visit highs after every trip, and after if Auburn or LSU or Florida, wherever he goes, it's like, oh man, I had a blast. They're my leader, But that's the nature of when you interview these kids, right? When they get back from these visits, you got to let it settle down for a couple of days before you get a real read on things. But with Caleb Cunningham in this particular trip, doesn't appear this is like a visit high. I think this is more like, hey, this is my destination. So we'll see. He's a very high profile, highly recruited kid. We've seen it over the years, right, where things can get a little shaky with these Mississippi kids. He's still considering in-state schools, Ole Miss and Mississippi State. So we'll have to see. But I feel good about it. And boy, what a big time kid. I don't have a player comp for him yet. I don't have he reminds me of. Still working on that because I haven't settled on one. But in terms of how big of a deal he is and his locale, I sort of like A.J. Brown as a comp in the sense that when I think 5-star receiver from Mississippi, I think A.J. Brown. And obviously, A.J. has panned out every step of the way and is now easily one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. With the Eagles and real tight personal buddies with Jalen Hurts. So we'll see about a comp, but Caleb Cunningham is a truly big deal, and this is great news for Alabama, even though at BOL we have yet to make our prediction yet.
Yeah, and you talk about A.J. Brown. He was at Mississippi at the same time with DK Metcalf. At Mississippi literally and figuratively. I guess two literallys. No, literally and literally, because he was literally from Mississippi and they both went to Ole Miss. But A.J. Brown, of course, from Starkville. I got to call them in the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game many moons ago, and they obliterated the Alabama defense. They just, took them to task. And, they were fantastic. I think you're right that this gives A.J. Brown kind of like it feels like on DK Metcalf thing, but I think DK and A.J. more freakishly in terms of measurably. Caleb listed at 6'2", 180. In my loophole theory, more like 6'1" and 170 probably. I mean, yeah. I think that's fair to say. The only people you go up on weight when they do these are offensive linemen typically. Everybody, you can go down on weight and be probably more correct. But I love Caleb Cunningham. I love his game. He's listed as the second best receiver in this class behind DeCarian Moore, who ironically plays with Keelan Russell. And, I don't think the ship has sailed for DeCarian Moore, but I think he's the long shot of the group. Alabama's probably still mentioned, maybe end for Moore. In the end, I think Texas or LSU again. Now, having that, Cunningham is the second-rated receiver in this class. The third-rated receiver is Khalil Lockett out of Texas, who Alabama is also looking at. He is also looking at Alabama very heavily. In fact, some people think he will end up at Alabama. Meadows also in this conversation. And then there's also Travis Smith, a fantastic player out of Georgia. Now, Alabama already has Luxier Brooks on the pledge list. So, Jimmy, if you take Brooks out of the equation, you think Alabama's going to try and sign 2 more receivers? And if they do, I would think Caleb Cunningham's sort of a no-brainer. Not that I'm not trying to offend any of the other receivers. I think Caleb Cunningham would be one that everybody would want. And then you say, okay, who's the other one you want? I lean Lockett. I would not be upset at all with Meadows or Smith.
Right. Yeah, I sort of feel that same way in terms of how many. I think, Andrew Bone of BOL has said, 2, but 3 if they're the right ones. I think Tim agrees with that, so I'm going to certainly agree with them. My guess is if it's just 1, they would be fine. It's not like they're going to be mad that they only came up with 2 because 2's fine. You have 12 on scholarship. None of them are out of eligibility. It wasn't a high need in this class to rack up a bunch of receivers. You just don't have room for that. But they've already got Brooks. They love him. We all love him. I'm crazy about Brooks, even though he's not ranked like the other guys are, but I'm crazy about him. Caleb Cunningham, you take for sure. And Lockett, you take for sure. So I think it would be those 3 if you get them all. But there's no certainty on any of them. You're still in it with Derek Meadows, who's fantastic. Still in on it with Travis Smith. Now, I think I noticed Tim Watts, I think this morning said maybe Tennessee for Travis Smith, but Alabama in great shape with Cunningham, Lockett, and Meadows. And when you only need 1, but you would take the others because you can't turn them away, you're in great shape. I think DeCarian Moore is a long shot to a no shot for now. But as recruiting progresses, let's see, because Keelan Russell's working on him.
Well, you hope he is, and he probably is. But and one other thing we're going to do, Jimmy, in a minute is we're going to talk about some of the other dudes that were in Tuscaloosa this weekend. We've already talked about Micah DeBose, who has committed to Bama. I won't revisit that really, but we talk about some of the guys right after I tell you about LinkedIn. And I clicked the wrong thing, but there it is, LinkedIn. We love LinkedIn. They're the best. I'm telling you, you do too. If you're any kind of business, you love them because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those that aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role in your business. Month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not LinkedIn on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place, yo. On LinkedIn, 86% get a qualified 24-hour. Our professionals like a professional with LinkedIn. Post your job free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job free. Terms and conditions. Yeah, sure. Why not? Okay, so Dijon Lee is another guy that got crystal balled to Alabama from this weekend. He visited Alabama. He had already actually been crystal balled, I think, for a while, but it seems like this solidified things. Dijon Lee out of California, 5-star defensive back, fabulous player. He's going to commit this Friday, June 28th. You and I have decided I screwed up reporting the June 28th this Friday because neither one of us wants to look on a calendar. And so he should be committing this Friday, and that will, again, help Alabama's class ranking and all this other stuff as they make a move for the number one.
Isn't that crazy that we're even discussing the number one recruiting class, that we're even discussing that Alabama could be one? But yes, it is realistic at this juncture that Alabama could end up with the number one class with a long way to go. But Dijon Lee, unlike Caleb Cunningham, at BOL, we have predicted Dijon Lee will sign with Alabama and will commit to Alabama on Friday. That's an official BOL prediction made yesterday by Tim Watts. You can't even exaggerate how big this is. A 5-star cornerback from California, from Mission Viejo. We decided to venture out and not sign a California DB from Mater Dei. We went to another high school to get a DB in California. That's a change up for us. But Dijon, if he chooses Alabama, it's over Georgia. It's over everyone that plays college football. Anyone would take him. Tremendous size, like freakish Richard Sherman size at the cornerback position, which also means clearly he could play Husky. He could play safety, with that size. No doubt he could, but why move him from corner if he can play that spot? Because what just a tremendous kid. Got a lot of friends on the team at Alabama, fits in fine. And he's one that's been pretty adamant throughout the whole process, Luke, that he liked Alabama a lot. And I think Alabama sealed the deal for him this weekend. And he'll announce Friday. And again, we're predicting at BOL it's Alabama. And anytime you add a 5-star, it's a big deal. There's only 32 of those guys, that get anointed that 5th star by On 3. And Dijon Lee's one of them. So big deal.
Definitely a big deal. And we'll talk about him some more a little later on in the week because I do feel like he hit on Friday. And so there's no real reason to go into it because we're going to talk later. Couple other notes. First of all, Faison Brandon visited Alabama this weekend, the number one quarterback for next year, not this coming class, but the class after that. And he apparently had a great time at Alabama. I mean, where would you say Alabama stands with him, Jimmy?
Well, Andrew Bone had a good conversation with him, and it was extremely encouraging. Bone seems to think even top 2. And that's just amazing. I mean, that one's amazing. That was as good as everything went this weekend. And you could this is how good things went. You could go in 5 different directions. Like, what was the big recruiting story of the weekend? Faison could easily be the number one story of the weekend because he, as it stands right now, is the number 1 2026 quarterback in the nation. And for him to say, I mean, it's Alabama or Tennessee. Obviously likes Tennessee a lot. Tennessee, as we know, will put in some significant resources when it comes to franchise quarterbacks. They're sort of known for that right now. So they won't be easy to beat, but top 2 per Bone. So that's exciting.
Very exciting. There's also Ty Jackson, who visited this past weekend. He seems to really love Alabama. We expect Dawson Merritt to commit sometime in the next year. And
that's a BOL prediction as well. We got a pretty good batting average on those.
And yeah, look, just an incredible, absolutely bananas weekend for Alabama. And I mean, frankly, Jimmy, it's like, I don't know how the rest of y'all are, but for me, maybe I'm just always a glass half full. I mean, halftime I don't even have a glass. I got some paper cup with a hole in it. But I'm like, is there another shoe going to drop? I mean, is there something bad going to happen? Because things are going so well in recruiting. It's beyond what I dreamed it could be. I mean, post Saban, I was mentally prepared for a drop off. Not only is this not a drop-off, this is the same as Saban, if not a hair better than some of his classes. I'm not saying he's the best recruiter, with Saban long term. Particularly is nuts.
Yeah, I'm not I'm surprised that it's this good. I'm not surprised that it's good. I expected it to be good because of what Saban had built here and what it's the Ferrari was built. It's just a matter of someone driving it well, and that's what's going on here with Kalen DeBoer. Saban built it. Everything is in place to recruit well, but you still got to do it. It's kind of like being a 14-point favorite in a football game. You still have to go on the field and execute and win the game.
Or 15 to win.
Exactly. Cover. So I expected Kalen DeBoer to do well. I think my expectations were actually higher than a lot of people's because I was very optimistic that DeBoer and this staff that he hired would do well. But it has exceeded even those expectations, and it is fair. When you look at this class and who Alabama has got so far and who Alabama is now favored to land and what this class could look like come December, there is no drop-off. There is no drop-off from the Nick Saban recruiting success. It's the same.
Two other things that are interesting about this. I think Goat Leah? Is that how you say it? Goat Leah or Goat Leah?
You can say Goat Leah, sure.
I want Goat Leah.
I'm sorry. It's Goat Tia. Goat
okay,
Tia.
Is it throwing an L in there for no reason?
Does she put an L in there? I just know her a little well. Her name is Tia Carter. Tia.
Well,
I just call her Tia because name dropping. She's a pal.
She's a good follow on X, formerly known as Twitter.
She is.
And she loves her some Alabama. She knows her stuff. And she pointed this out, I think, the other day when Alabama got a commitment from Micah DeBose, and everybody was like, and then they got all these crystal balls for Dijon Lee and for Caleb Cunningham. There was one other crystal ball this weekend. Who was it, Jimmy? Am I blanking?
Ty Haywood.
Ty Haywood, okay. But I thought that already. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And somebody said, gosh, how's this happening? And she said, hey, Nick Saban's legacy and foundation allowed for Les Miles to come in and kick butt for a while. Y'all didn't think Kalen DeBoer was going to do it? And that's a great point. Other point. Interesting. I'm kicking tail on the rail, and they're doing it without necessarily dominating the state in a year when we all thought the state of Alabama was really, really good. And it is good. And Alabama is not dominating the state. I know Auburn people love to pound their chest about that right now, and they should. I mean, it's great. Good for them. But there's some of these dudes Alabama's aiming a little higher, and they're getting them. And then meanwhile, it's kind of funny. I don't know if you saw this. Zion Grady just committed to Ohio State just now. Now, it was crystal ball there after the visit this weekend, but now there. Found interesting that recruiting is going well, out dominating a really good year in the state of Alabama. That just speaks volumes to me. So anyway, I find that to be fascinating. And something else is fascinating, and I think this is fascinating, is FanDuel. And we're going to talk about FanDuel right now. FanDuel. Love me some FanDuel. You love FanDuel. Summertime means baseball. It means the NHL finals. Last game tonight. Come back from a 0-3 deficit. Kind of cool. Get on FanDuel. You can bet on it. All that stuff and more on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from the finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the ballpark in any of these given ballparks that they're batting in. That was terrible. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, of course, as you know, I don't even need to tell you, but they're America's #1 sports book. Okay, so before we get back into your countdown, a couple other things that I saw that just came across the wire here. The Utu, Douglas Utu, UTU, interior lineman out of Utah, I believe, which is kind of weird. Utu out of Utah. He has been Fong bombed to Tennessee. And you say, what's the big deal about that? Well, he was at least giving Alabama a sniff. And I think Alabama's probably pretty good along the offensive line now. I mean, you could make the argument. I think when all said and done, this offensive line class is going to rank up there with the best, of all time. I mean, I'm not being over the top here. I'm serious. So yeah, Utu, I think, and if see, so be it, they get a good one. But all right, back into your countdown, Jimmy, and we're to a dude who is, not exactly going to move the meter a bunch. No offense to the Hibbett family, but Nealon Hibbett, who long snapper for Alabama, good player, and again, it's just like a punter. If you don't think long snappers are a big deal, just try having one that sucks. All of a sudden, you'll go, oh, my God, we need a long snapper. And here's the thing. Alabama's had a nice history recently of good long snappers. I mean, way above average long snappers.
Yeah. If you think about it, Carson Tinker has had a long career in the NFL as a long snapper, and he had been an Alabama snapper. And again, he snapped in the NFL for multiple seasons. May still be hanging around. I'm to be honest, I'm not sure. Then you had a guy with maybe a little less success in the NFL, but he got drafted. Thomas Fletcher was actually drafted as a long snapper out of Alabama. So Luke's right. There's a bit of a history, and now along comes Nealon Hibbett. He may be better than those first two. Maybe Hibbett will now be a 4-year starter. That's a pretty significant deal at Alabama. When you're a starter on the team for 4 years, he only has one bad snap that I can remember. There's probably others that people might remember that may have been a little off, but I don't really remember those. I remember the bad snap at Arkansas, in a punt situation. But other than that, he's been great. This is a guy that was a Manley Award watch list guy last year, which is the award that goes to the nation's best long snapper. He was selected by the SEC coaches as the all SEC long snapper a year ago, and now has another season in front of him. Recovered a fumble against Auburn. I believe it was it Auburn? No, it might have been. He recovered a fumble, either Auburn or Michigan. I can't remember, but a big game.
It was Michigan, because he didn't recover the fumble against Auburn on the muff punt. That was Jihad Campbell, right?
It could be. I just remember him recovering a fumble late in the year, and I want to say it's Auburn or Michigan. But
it was Michigan. But I'm not 100%.
Good player, good kid, grandson of Dennis Homan, the former Alabama great, and famously coaches sorority flag football. There's been some funny Instagram videos of him coaching the sorority flag football team, which is funny. And he plays guitar and sings, sort of a talented kid. And hey, how about this? Here's the most exciting thing to me, Luke. Graham Nicholson, the Alabama kicker, he stands a pretty decent chance of being drafted. He's good. Will Riker was drafted. Graham Nicholson may be drafted. Alabama's punter, James Burnip, don't rule out him getting drafted. That could happen. Nealon Hibbett may be drafted. And my point is, I think having 2 specialists drafted, that has to be the record. 2. Has anyone ever had 2? Alabama might have 3. That would be crazy. Hey, and that number may be 0. So let's not put that down in ink, or, hey, Jimmy didn't say that 3 will be drafted. I'm saying 3 might be drafted. That would be unbelievable.
Let me tell you, it just dawned. So you're Nealon Hibbett, and put his picture. I don't have time to fiddle with all that. But he's a pretty good looking dude. Plays for Alabama football at a time when he's got all kind of rings and success, and he works out, so he's in shape. He plays. I mean, he's not like some backup that nobody knows. I mean, he's a dude. He's made all SEC teams. He plays guitar, and he coaches sorority flag football. I'm impressed he has time to put his clothes on. I mean, I can't imagine anybody more in demand from a sorority than Nealon. Sorority is like, what the first thing we're going to do every time we have a party is we're going to see what Nealon Hibbett's doing and see how many of us he wants to date that night. That guy's living the life of all lives.
It's a good story. Maybe this is a guy we should have on the show.
Oh God! And forget the Alabama. I want the sorority flag football stories.
Yeah, because we can't really ask him too much about what's going on with the football team, right?
Yeah, I was reaching for her flag, and I pulled all her clothes off, and she was cool with it.
I think there would be a lot of questions that we could have for Nealon about that and everything except Alabama football, which is, hey, you're a pretty good long snapper. Yeah, I'm good at that.
I don't want him to talk about football. I want him to be my life coach.
Okay, we'll consider it. We'll have to come up with some NIL money, but we'll consider it.
All right. If I had known,
hey, install another fountain. Go install another fountain at Gretzky's place, and we'll come up with some NIL money for.
My high school didn't even have a football team, but if I had known that I would have had the opportunity, and I could just like Luke, take some guitar lessons, snap a long football back, and next thing you know, you're the biggest, you're BMOC. So anyway, all right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We will be back with more countdown stuff, hopefully with some more commitment stuff, maybe with some more recruiting prediction machines and all that later. Please do subscribe. We appreciate you guys very much for that. Until next time, everybody.
Roll Tide.